So last May, I was lucky enough to be part of a product test for Evans and Diodario, and they wanted me to test some fantastic new technology, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. What that technology is the Evans Hybrid Sensory Percussion Sound System. During that test, they asked me if I wanted to be an advanced product tester and actually receive a unit at home in order to evaluate it and provide them some feedback, and of course I jumped at the chance to do that. Who wouldn't? So here it is, the new Evans Hybrid Sensory Percussion Sound System, which is a collaboration between Evans, who we know for drumheads, and Sunhouse, who we know for innovation with pickups and technology related to electronic drums. What we're going to do today is we're going to unbox this guy. We're going to get it set up on my main kit and get the software downloaded and just see what happens. So let's get into it. Your sonic universe awaits. Wow, look at this. We have 3 of the triggers, a quick setup guide, a power adapter, a small piece with the Enmeshed branding on it, which that'll be interesting to see what that's about. We get a number of the little silver pieces which are for the sensors to trigger against. So we get 6 of them to start with. In addition, in the box, of course, you have the 3 sensor units and all the cables you need to connect them, including a USB-C cable. But the main thing is the new Evans portal. This is the interface for the sensors and indeed is a full-fledged audio interface besides. This is what makes the Evans Hybrid Sensory Percussion System different from the old Sunhouse system. Oh great, a drag and drop installation. Using the quick start guide, it's fairly simple to get everything connected. You simply connect the silver sensor elements. They line up using a little V flange, and then connect the sensors themselves. Let's say the connection to this is really pretty great. It's very solid. Copacetic. It's cool to know that it's expandable, that I have, you know, I could add even 4 more triggers beyond what it actually comes with. Let's launch the software, I guess. Sensory Percussion 2. Here we come. You have the ability to subdivide the drum into different zones, and the sensor has the ability to use its technology to figure out exactly where you are hitting the drum. There are a few different levels of this, and they get more and more in depth. Their initial recommendation is to leave it just at level 1. I did not do that because I'm a rule breaker. After setting your sample rate and buffer size, you're directed through 3 levels of training. You'll be asked to strike the drum with a variety of techniques and use a lot of dynamic variation. This is how the drum will define its zones and begin to learn how you play. So we want to give it a good amount of variation here. If you're someone who's using a lot of dynamics in your cross stick, you want to reflect that when you're training it, because this is how it's learning what and how you play. So you don't want to come to this and just start whacking away at the same level cross stick. You want to actually give it some variation. And the more information you give the system, the better of an outcome you're going to have when you actually go to use it. This was the most challenging part of the system for me to explain because it's incredibly powerful and has a million features, and I wasn't sure how much you do or don't want to know about it. You can click on the links below to skip past this section if you'd like, since it is lengthy. Alternatively, if you have any other questions about this, please let me know and I'll make more videos about it. Now, your main sections, you have your play section, your edit section, and then your mix section. The play section is, again, the sort of heads-up display for the kit and where you'd have it for most of the time. Now up here you have a bunch of sample, the Acadia, Bebop kit, Analog Trap, Melodic Future, like that one, Pitchy Percussion, I don't even know how to say that, Cataratus, Phantasma keys. Now these are just a fraction, a small fraction of the number of sounds that are actually in this system. If you click the arrow here, you'll see there are all of these libraries, and each one of these libraries has multiple sounds. I cannot delve into all of those right now. It would take me, and did take me, hours and hours. The demo session is a good place to start to get a feel for what this thing can actually do. Down here, you have what they are calling macros, and what these macros do, they're just quick adjustments to sound. So you can add unlimited effects and modifiers to any sound that you see in this place. For instance, I could plug a guitar into this and build a guitar amplifier right within the software itself. So now I'm actually mapping my inputs across this as if it were two sensors, even though it's only one. And there is nothing stopping me, by the way, from enabling both of these at the same time. But this also helped me demo for you guys easily, because I can then just shut one of these two inputs off. A lot of these have small instructions that it pays to read. And as I play from center to edge, and soft to loud, you have the ability to have different hits not only make different sounds, but control different parameters. So, for instance, on this kit, tapping the snare rim turns on or off a melodic pattern. It's hard to show on video exactly how much control I do and don't have over what it is doing pitch-wise, but it is incredibly aware of where I am hitting the drum. And the better you train this thing, the better it understands. As I've mentioned before, the software is quite limitless. But it occurred to me when I was editing that I did not show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to attempt to do that now, though how you show someone the limitless nature of something is a little bit of a challenge. So I mentioned before you have the play, edit, and mix areas. You also have all of these little tweaks that you can do. But just going back to our Acedia kit here, if I go to edit, you are brought to a page where you can start to basically endlessly modify anything you want. If you click over here, not only do you have your sound banks, you have generators for adding a sampler, so I could actually create my own sample and map it to any of these drums. You have an audio insert where I could be pushing audio through any of these sensors. So you could theoretically have a guitarist interacting with your pads directly while you are also playing them. So I can actually go into this. Sounds nice, but I want to distort it a bit, so I can add a tube amp into that. I can decide where I want to drop this in, by the way. Play runs of notes just by dragging my stick. You also have the ability to control what octave it is, what key it's playing, where the sound is being controlled, because we actually have a controller here playing high to low. So the start of the range is at the center and the end is at the edge. But we can actually flip that. We can decide for any part of the drum or even any kind of technique playing on the drum to control whether the pitch is being changed or not. We can add additional controllers to this device. by going here. There is no way I could even begin to think about showing you how powerful that actually is. I could do anything that I want. And that very fact is making it very difficult for me to think of examples of what to do, which is kind of one of this piece's Achilles heels and its greatest strength. If you want to just come in and use the basic presets, you're going to have a good time. It is very powerful, and the bulk of the demos that I made for you were done with presets loaded out of the system's sound banks. That being said, if you have the nerve to go in here, remember, for the purposes of this demo, I'm using one drum. Having this on an entire kit is just insane what you could do with it. Now imagine that you not only had it on your entire kit, but you also had the guitarist and bass player going through it. Think about that. The possibilities are basically endless because you can trigger any aspect with it with any input that it has. You're not limited to triggering it just from these 7 sensor inputs. I could absolutely plug a microphone into this and begin to trigger it that way as well. And I will do so in future videos, but for right now, it's just too much to get into. And anywhere these little arrows are on the sides, when they're sort of put away, you're just sort of able to touch basic controls. But you can modify anything in any of these kits by either clicking these arrows and getting different generators, different sounds that you can add to things. I can absolutely go into one of these patches, grab a sound from that patch, and specifically layer it back into a drum set that already exists. But I can go in here, and there's all of these kits here. We will pick, I don't know, Melody Pattern Garden. Let's see what is in here. So I can actually take this sound and drop it into my snare. And not only can I do that with the one, I can take the other and drop it into my snare. And I can even do it with multiple instances of the same sound over and over again. I can take my distortion and drop it right in on top of that. From a totally different kit. So you have the ability to mix and match and shuffle anything in this thing. And if that weren't enough for you, you then have the edit page where you can actually get into the nuts and bolts and controllers of all this. It is far too much for me to get into in this kind of a video. I will probably have to make individual videos for almost every one of these sort of pieces. So you have your instrument here, your bebop snare, and then we have a center to edge melodic effect map to it. I could then go in, again, clicking this arrow here, and start dropping anything from different sounds, from different pieces, or build different generators, doing other melodic things, putting in controllers to run sequences, adding different effects to any of these, putting my own different samples, again, across these drums and mixing and matching them, and it does it all seamlessly. In my testing, I was not able to make the system sweat at all, even though it was plugged into a 2015 Retina MacBook Pro. I was not able to get to the point where it distorted, where CPU was overloaded. I don't know how exactly they are accomplishing that, but it is quite amazing. The only place where I was able to get it to trip up was when I actually changed full sound libraries. And if you look at these sound libraries, each one of these is loading anywhere between 15 to 20 individual drum sets. We haven't even gotten to the mix page, where this controls everything about the output stage of the system. Sunhouse really outdid themselves with this software. It is extremely capable, extremely fluid, and honestly, the best part is it just sounds goddamn great. So of course it took a few minutes to set up the sensors on the drums. and retrained everything so that I was all set up and ready to play. Okay. And that is it. I took a few minutes to go through a lot of the sounds that were in the presets, and each one of them was unique and very rewarding. Every sound I got to generated probably an hour to an hour and a half of total creative bliss. Every set is unique with different ways of utilizing the system, and by going through the presets you kind of learn what you can do with controlling parameters. So there was a moment that was an utter epiphany with this piece of equipment, and it just blew my mind. I mean, holy crap. Wow. I realized when setting up that I could actually use anything as a source for sensory percussion. In this case, I'm using the Evans Portal's built-in microphone, which is normally for noise cancellation and crosstalk elimination, to turn my desk into a giant sensory percussion drum. Okay, Evans. I'm really curious now that I realized that I can make microphones into triggers for the system, what I can do with that. So tomorrow what I will do is I'll connect a bass drum mic into one of the inputs and set it as a trigger, and I'm going to see if that is going to be similar to a fourth sensor if I lose a lot that way. So this is how I'm going to test my theory. I have piggybacked an SM57 on the back of my regular mic stand. I'll stick those both in the bass drum and connect the SM57 into the Evans Portal. And we'll use it as a de facto trigger and just see what happens. Perfect. It occurs to me I've actually completely neglected the acoustic drum patches. So I'm gonna go ahead and load those in. Here we go. I have a feeling this would work a lot better if I had it set up on a mesh kit, so I'm gonna check that out. Just look at it for doubling. If you listen to that kick, that's pretty intense. This is where it occurred to me I was totally wrong. Using the sensor percussion system to layer drums is absolutely fantastic. As you play runs around the toms, you get no machine gun triggering or anything like that. It all just feels like a seamless instrument without the normal foibles that you get when you're using triggers. I attempted to shoot some video showing everybody how amazing the dynamics were, but the systems demanded drum solos. It just kept pulling me in further and further. Next thing I knew, I'd be playing another crazy beat or drum solo or whatever. And then I got to the Seco kit. Seco. meaning Dry Sun, a psychedelic rock drum kit that was recorded at Mozart Street in Greenpoint. Actually been in that studio before. That is awesome. So as my product testing continued, I determined that I wanted to have a dedicated kit for this, and because all of my drum sets are actually in service and needed for other things, I went out to buy the worst imaginable drum set. So I'm here in Sam Ash, and I've decided to buy probably the worst drum set I could find for so many reasons. So I went to the best possible drum guy I know, Mr. George Rigney, who actually, fun fact, sold me my Spawn kit back in around, what, 2000?
Yep, I think it was the first one on the East Coast.
And he showed me a just delightful, beautiful, just kiss up to the heavens drum set. George, what is your full opinion about this drum set? Speaking as a professional.
Quite possibly one of the worst things I've ever bought.
I feel like I'm gonna need a tetanus shot after this. George, thank you very much. This is the first drum set you've sold me in about 20 years,
About 20 years, it's been that long.
That is amazing. Yep. All right,
I hope you get as much use out of this one as you got out of the last.
I will be doing a product demo with it and then probably lighting it on fire.
That sounds great.
I'm actually pretty excited to see what sort of the differences are playing it as part of a hybrid kit with acoustic sound, playing them as additional pieces on my giant hybrid kit that I already have, and sort of playing with it as its own thing on this absolutely terrible monstrosity of a kit. So we will see. So what we have here is a lovely sound percussion kit that someone has decided to put this green wrap on. They changed out all the hardware, but most of it's put on wrong. And to top it all off, we have a Philadelphia Eagles bass drum sticker. So obviously this is an Eagle fan who either changed their mind about drums or wisened up about their teams. So what I'll be attempting to do is convert this into an electronic kit. This way I'll be able to test the Evans Hybrid both on my main kit as well as on a kit that's dedicated for the purposes of electronics. And by the way, this thing was $100. So the first one of these is as complete as I'm gonna make it for right now. It doesn't look too bad for a totally nude shell. I decided to keep the the Evans hydraulics on the bottom, just I thought that was pretty hilarious. So I'll get to repairing and changing out at least a couple of these drums. My plan is to use a kick drum as an acoustic kick drum, and then I will have one floor tom and a snare. That's what I'm thinking, at least so far. So here's a question. How do you know that a drum set belonged to a heavy smoker? One very important detail here. Using the hybrid sensory percussion sound system as a pure synth device was extremely rewarding. I actually used it to create all of the bumpers and sounds that you hear in this video. It was very responsive and felt endless in a certain way. I recorded hours and hours of footage like this, and I'll be releasing some of it here and on other social media platforms. What you're watching is the first time I ever interacted with this particular sound, and I'm just completely improvising. I could imagine someone making an entire career on splice just by using this device. Hans Zimmer better watch out. You could create the soundtrack to an entire Christopher Nolan film on this thing without even practicing. just using it this way with a single tom, a single snare, and a kick, just the 3 triggers just as it came, it is capable of doing so much. I could do melodic things, all sorts of weird atonal distorted sounds. I can control, though, with extreme precision. By that I mean me using extreme precision. There is a marked difference, and the software knows, between the stick being 1 inch off of the surface or 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches off the surface. It's reacting to very, 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 very finite, very small changes. It almost feels as if it's more sensitive than a MIDI gradation, but I'm not sure. There's 128 levels, for people who don't know, of dynamics in MIDI, and that is less, of course, than there are in real drums, but it approximates it. And it's hard to say whether this is more sensitive than that. It certainly seems to be. And it seems to really know what I am doing on the drums and responding to it. So I have to be very mindful of what I'm playing on this kit to make sure that I know what I want to send it and what I want it to say. So yeah, you could use these as just regular dumb triggers if you wanted to, and just play with some really basic sounds and leave it that way. But I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it'll do that as well as anything will, but there's so much power locked in here. I really wonder, though, if people are going to try it. You know, if they're going to really get in there and start to rip these things apart and see what they could do. So when I had it set up on the acoustic drums with the SM57, it really felt complete in terms of the 2 toms and a kick and a snare setup. When I had it on the mesh drums, it was a very interesting experience, but I continuously felt the lack of the other tom. It really feels like this kits, most of them are engineered to have 3 sensor units. So I would suggest right out of the box, going ahead and just buying one. I actually really think that Evans would do well to do like sort of a Cadillac edition of this thing, like a deluxe model with either 4 or 5 sensor units, maybe a higher end interface with more inputs or outputs in a more rugged interior, something like that maybe, or perhaps bundling it with a set of decent, you know, so mediocre, let's put it, overhead mics. It might be something like that. Like that's very appealing to any drummer that wants to get into this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this device's greatest strength is also its giant Achilles heel, and that is how powerful the system actually is. It's so powerful that I can imagine a newer drummer being thoroughly intimidated by it. I can imagine someone just not really knowing what to do with it because it can do so much. The fact that it has these modeled acoustic drums in it that are as good as any I've ever heard, frankly. And then it's also got synth patches and chord progressions and effects and modulation and all sorts of ability to build amps, frankly. You could plug a guitar into this and build a custom amp and just play the guitar through it and use it as a guitar amp if you wanted to. It can do almost anything within reason for a interface of its size with a given number of inputs. I would be very curious to hear what using it as some sort of a band processor would be like, as in putting bands through it and actually affecting them using the device. It does have the ability to do all of that, and the synth modeling in the Sunhouse 2 software is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, the hardware devices itself, easily 10 out of 10. The quality of the sensors is extremely high. The quality of the cables is great. They're easily swappable with any other TRS cables with an eighth inch, 35 millimeter jack. The actual Evans Portal interface is a solid piece of equipment. I would have liked it to be made of a sturdier feeling material. It is a little bit on the light side, but then again, when you're carrying a bunch of drums, I might be thankful for that. I hope that Evans offers a case for it. A purpose-built case for this would be very, very handy and nice to have. Perhaps something that can either turn into a table or attach to a drum set might be a good idea, you know, so you could actually connect the interface, because it's always a struggle dealing with the laptop and the drum set to begin with. Maybe an idea there for somebody who's enterprising, wants to make money, or maybe I should build it. Maybe. Sunhouse 2 software is great. The patches load instantaneously within each bank of sounds. When you do switch banks, that is something that you would not want to do mid-set. So I have a feeling that you would want to create all the kits you're going to use live within the same bank, if you will. And it's a bit hard to explain the way that that is set up. And actually that brings me to another point. The software is endless. And what it can do is endless, and that can be a good thing, or sometimes it can be a little bit too much. It might be an idea to create a version of the software that's a little more pared down, or do what Logic does and have an advanced tab that you can shut on and shut off, because there's a lot going on there. And being someone who's very experienced with dealing with you know, synthesis and modulators and creating stuff from scratch, creating patches, like, it's fine, but for someone who's more novice, it would be problematic. I could see someone buying this kit in order to convert their acoustic kit into electronic. I could see someone very easily doing that. I could see someone buying this as an alternative to V-drums. It would take some tweaking, but the modeled kits in there are very, very, very good. Nothing in the cymbal department really, except for a few little hi-hats here and there, but certainly very viable for the other drums. And really, musical weirdos, avant jazz people who are trying to push the envelope, this is for you. If you just ever wanted to sit down and just play, you know, Bjork or Nine Inch Nails beats and just have it be instantaneous, that you could just come up with stuff that is completely crazy within just a couple of minutes, this is 100% up your alley, and you should just buy it when it comes out. There's no question in my mind. If you're somebody who's really wanting to do some different things creatively as a drummer, this is the product for you. Whether it has a lot of application outside of a practice environment for the other world of drummers, right, for just, you know, quote unquote regular drummers, normal drummers, we shall see. I could absolutely see someone, though, getting the new low volume cymbals, the DB1 heads, and then having this, and just sort of having a complete complement of sounds right then and there. Certainly for a lot less than it would be for a premier, you know, top end electronic kit plus an acoustic kit plus cymbals. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be very interesting to see how people react to this. What am I doing? Though I'm very used to making social media videos for TikTok and Instagram, this is my first time attempting to make a video of this kind for YouTube. That, coupled with the fact that the device itself is insanely powerful and very complicated, if you want it to be, was a little bit of a challenge. With that, I'm sure people will have questions. I will endeavor to do my best to answer them. I was able to show you maybe about a 1/100th of the footage that I shot, and about 100 of the 100th of the things that the system can do. The device is $1,499 plus tax. At that, it represents a fantastic value. To get 3 triggers and an interface and that software at that price point is extremely attractive. At that price, you could buy this set of the Evans low volume cymbals, the DB1 heads, and you'd be in at around $2,000 to convert your entire drum set to an electronic kit if you wanted to. You could also do what I did and spend $100 and now you're in at $1,600 with a sensory percussion kit. On the upsides, the Evans Portal has 7 inputs for the triggers, which is great. It does have the 2 XLR jacks, so it's enough to start gigging right away. I would like to see an expanded version later with more ins and outs. The sensor input 7 is, I'm sure, more than sufficient, but I would like to see more in terms of XLR to combine traditional micing techniques with the sensory percussion. Also, you would be able to add more in terms of having like your bass player or your guitarist play through it. The portal itself feels a little bit plasticky, and the top of it is a fingerprint magnet. Again, this is a double-edged sword, not really a plus or minus. You kind of want a lightweight unit if you're going to be bringing this thing to gigs, but then you kind of also want a sturdy unit. How this will handle being out in the real world, I do not know. I will certainly be treating it with kid gloves as I take it out in the field. I will be taking this to some shows of my band Zero Fox over the next couple of months and using it real world, so I'll have a lot more to report back about that then. The sensor units are extremely durable and very well made. The adjustment knobs feel great and tight. It was no problem getting them in and out. One negative, I did have a couple of times where the actual sensor units, the small pieces of metal, where the adhesive did not properly stick to the drum head. I have a feeling, though, that was user error on my part. I would recommend, though it doesn't say this in the manual, cleaning the spot that you're going to apply it with rubbing alcohol. Once I did do that, they adhered perfectly and haven't come off since. The system, when you first load it up and just use the demo kits or go through any of the sound packs that are in there, is very easy to use. A normal person is going to be able to follow that training regimen and get sounds out of it and start playing with it right away. You can absolutely, though, go ham and get to a place where it's almost overwhelming the amount of possibilities that you can combine with sounds. The fact that you can have each sensor mapped to multiple different virtual sensors, and then you can also have different sound patches on top of each other layered like that and cross-communicating is just astonishing. Being able to, for instance, map a scale, having it play center to edge, high to low one way, but then also playing edge to center, low to high the other way, would give you the ability to actually play harmonies with each individual note. To explain what I mean, you would actually have to touch this thing. I will be making more videos about this in the future, and I hope this has been helpful. If it has, do me a favor, please like and subscribe and share. I am new to making videos for YouTube, but I have a lot I feel like I can contribute to the conversation. If you feel the same, please throw me a like and a follow.